past weekend, former President Trump sent a letter to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger asking him to consider decertifying the state's presidential election results. The letter, which was posted to Twitter by Trump's spokeswoman Liz Harrington, said Trump had new reports of voting improprieties that the Secretary of State should investigate.
Do you remember the last election? He said that some people were standing in line and one of his golfing friends heard that illegal immigrants were voting, and so 2016's election was rigged and he really won the popular vote. Because, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger joins us now. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary of State, the patience of Job you have.
You
the
really
patience
do.
of Job. My grandmom in Dalton, Georgia, would read me from Job all the time. And somehow, when I think back to those moments, I think of you, because you have extraordinary patience. And yet the lies continue. The president has asked you to look into, the former president's asked you to look into some of these rumors. What have you found?
Well, we've had multiple investigations. In fact, prior to his letter, we already had begun an investigation of this, and we will finish that up and then send our findings over to the State Election Board. But at the end of the day, we've been rebutting, and fighting all this misinformation, disinformation for over 10 months now. And it's not healthy for American democracy. But what we've seen is people lose an election, as low as the PTA level, all the way up to the president, not accepting the will of the people. And that's not healthy for America. I'm a lifelong conservative. I'm a Reagan Republican. And I know that at the end of the day, I have to always choose the country over the party. My job as a constitutional officer is make sure we have honest and fair elections in the state of Georgia.
So this is what I don't understand. And I'm sure you've talked to a lot of Republicans as you're campaigning, just like I've talked to my Republican friends I grew up with. And you sit there and explain to them that there were 62, 63, 64 challenges in federal courts, and never was there any widespread voter fraud proven. You even saw Rudy Giuliani going into a federal court saying they weren't alleging widespread voter fraud. It seemed very few people actually, when they had to sign on the dotted line before they went into federal court with the federal court pleadings, very few of them actually alleged that. And no court, not even the Supreme Court, ever found any deviation from accepted norms. Or at least never found widespread voter fraud. How do you take that message to your fellow Republicans and the people that used to be members of my party?
Well, you're correct on all that. I wrote a 10-page letter to Congress. Unfortunately, when they got it on January 6th, they were focused on other matters. But I put that in my book, Integrity Counts. And then I really go through line by line, point by point. When they said that there were thousands of dead people that voted, we found less than a handful. They said that there were 66,000 underage voters. There were 0. They said that there was thousands of unregistered voters that voted. There weren't any of those. So every time that an allegation was made, we ran that down. We wanted to make sure, did we miss anything? And at the end of the day, the results were what they were, that President Trump did not carry the state of Georgia.
So the conspiracy theorists seem to focus a lot on Fulton County. One of my friends sent an article from a website run by a Chinese religious cult that said that somebody was taking suitcases out from underneath the table and moving them out, and some conspiracy theory. Were all those theories that have been spread around on the internet since November and December of last year, have those all been checked out? Was there somebody in Fulton County that took a suitcase of ballots and moved them out? Where does that conspiracy theory come from?
We disproved that. We had the whole run of tape. At the State Farm Arena, it was under surveillance 24/7. And the conspiracy was that people had come in and stuffed ballots. But What we did is we brought in the FBI, we brought in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They saw the whole run of tape, and all three law enforcement agencies that looked at that said there wasn't anything to that. Unfortunately, the lie got on and got around the world before our investigators had the opportunity to bring in outside law enforcement to also look at it. But it's been totally disproved, and I talk about that in my book. It's out there, and some people choose to understand the truth, and other people want to continue the big lie.
Secretary Raffensperger, good morning. It's Willie Geist. How many times in total, either by machine or by hand, has the vote been counted in the state of Georgia for the 2020 election?
3 times. So we had our first, tabulation that you go through, and then we did a 100% hand recount, which did 2 things. It proved that the machines did not flip the votes, but it also verified the original count. And then after we had done those 2, then we went ahead and did another scan ballots of all 5 million ballots, which also verified the total count that we had, which is that President Trump, lost the state of Georgia by about 12,000 votes.
So is there any doubt in your mind that Joe Biden won the state of Georgia?
No, there's no doubt in my mind that Vice President Biden carried the state of Georgia. And what people don't understand, which I put in my book, is that we had 28,000 people that skipped the presidential ballot. So what they said is, I'm not voting for Joe Biden, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, not voting for Joe Jorgensen. They just left it blank, but voted down ballot. In the metropolitan areas of Atlanta, that we had David Perdue, Senator Perdue, got 20,000 more votes. 20,000 more votes than Donald Trump did. So those are the differences right there.
So, Mr. Secretary, you talked about the danger of this kind of big lie being perpetuated still by Donald Trump, sending you a letter just a few days ago asking you to look into these claims of fraud. We know about the infamous phone call that was recorded that he made to you back in January, where he asked you to, quote, find 11,780 votes so that he could win the state of Georgia. Can you be specific about what you think that danger is? He has supported, the former president has supported a challenger to you in your race to keep your seat. That challenger supports the big lie, supports Donald Trump. If someone who is not you, if someone who is more open to these conspiracy claims were sitting in your chair, what might happen? Because it's not just Georgia, it's states across the country where the president is supporting people who support the big lie.
Well, it really destabilizes our American democracy at the end of the day. We have to really have people that are going to stand in the line, have the moral courage to just say, this is how the results came out, and not waver, not look left, not look right, but look straight down the line and have that personal integrity. We have to get back in America to really those old-fashioned values that our parents raised us by, small-town values, you can call it, but it's really that you're honest, that you're going to have character, and you're going to do the right thing. And then I think we also need to have a more civil discourse. We can disagree on policies, but that we have to really come together and talk about those differences we have respectfully. But I think we have to know that character counts, integrity counts, always has, always will.
It's fascinating what you were saying about the undervotes. People decided not to vote for Donald Trump. I remember after the election, Donald said, well, how could it be that Republicans won all over the country, but I lost? What you just described to our friends who are listening right now is exactly what Ron Johnson was caught on tape admitting in Wisconsin. And he said, I won by, I think he said something like 150,000 votes. And then he said, if you add up all the Republican state legislators, they won by a margin of maybe it was 56,000 or 156,000. They won by the same number of votes. If you look at people that were running statewide in Wisconsin, they won by the same number of votes. Donald Trump underperformed for every Republican. And so his argument was, caught on camera, if the Democrats were going to steal elections, they would have stolen all of the elections. It's not a coincidence that we all did well and we all got the same number of votes across all offices we were running for, except for Donald Trump. There were just enough Republicans, whether it was in Wisconsin or whether it was in the suburbs of Atlanta, that were just not going to vote for a candidate they considered to be toxic, right?
We saw similar effect here in Georgia. In the Republican congressional areas, they outperformed President Trump by about 33,000 votes. And so there's a difference right there. What's really interesting is that the congressman that's running against me, he voted to certify his results but then he said that the ones for the president were somehow tainted. He's a double-minded person, and a pastor should know better than that.
Yes. Well, there are many pastors who
Yeah.
should know better than what they've been doing over the last 4